started. This video is by and large a demonstration of how to actually use the product. What we're going to do is come up with a specification, and then we're going to take you through pretty much from scratch all the way through to having a working program. So the idea is that you would do this yourself just to get a feel for it. This is the first of a series of videos, so this is just a gentle introduction to get you up and actually doing something productive. There are a few steps first. So the first thing we're going to do is download the Visual Studio Community Edition. We need this to create some add-ons later on, so we may as well get it out of the way. We're going to bookmark a few links on the web just so you can know where to go if you need to look, for example, at the syntax of Visual Basic .NET commands. We're going to have a quick play with VIP initially just to kind of break it and see how it actually operates, and then after that we're going to work on an actual specification. So let's build a specification. So I need to send out a set of emails in sequence over time. I'll decide which ones I want to send within the spreadsheet, and then the spreadsheet is then going to push out the emails using VIP to do the work. We're going to get a prototype working as quickly as possible. Once we've got it working, we're going to come back around and make it a bit more industrial strength, put some more logging in, put some more error handling in, etc. Okay, so let's get going. So if you go to Visual Studio Downloads, you will see a number of versions. The one that a good place to start is the Visual Studio Community Edition. So download that, get it installed, and you will end up with something that looks like this. It's got some examples in there. It will also have new to Visual Studio, check out coding and tutorials and sample projects. Now, we don't want you to particularly become a sort of .NET wizard. You don't really need to be with VIP. You'd only need to get into this if you're going to get into some more advanced coded add-ons. But it's good to go and have a little look and have just a sort of browse around the different types of object types that exist within the Visual Studio. You know, it's basically Visual Basic, C# and C++, etc. It's also worth going to the Visual Studio documentation because you are going to be working with different variable types, and it's important you understand, for example, what's a date, and there's different types of date formats, etc. So you can't really get around those. We can't take those away from you. So being able to search through this and understand how variables, the different types of variables and how you transfer from, say, dates to strings and strings to integers, etc. is important. So go and have a look around those first of all. Okay, so let's get stuck into the product. We'll just click on the designer here just to make sure we have a list of all of our actions down the left hand side. You'll have a start page which will show you any flows you've already opened. If you go to File, Open, Examples, you will find lots of examples in there, and you can just have a quick look around those to see if you can have a look at some of the flows. This Hello World one, for example, you can just come in and do Actions Execute, and that's now run through and actually executed a flow. If we run it through with Actions Debug, then actually what it'll do is it'll go through, it'll tell you the actual statements it's going through as well, which gives you a little bit more information as you're playing around with your flow. So that's your kind of first lesson. Now, if you look down the left hand side, there are loads and loads of different activities down there, and if you go to Tools, Manage, there's tons of things in there. For the purposes of just getting moving, you probably just prune it down to something along these types of things. So just really skinny it down to the basics until you get moving. So let's just do something like that, and then you'll see down the left hand side we've just got some of the core stuff. Maybe we're not even interested in XML and JSON for the time being, or even web services. So we're just going to have the basics in our palette on the left hand side. So let's go and create our program. First things first, we'll have a look at the specification. So in here we've got a little document specification, very straightforward. I need to send out a set of emails in sequence over time. I'll decide which ones I want to send in a spreadsheet, get a prototype working, and then make it industrial strength. Also in the folder you will see a spreadsheet, and in here I've got basically two worksheets. I've got email address, email welcome, get going, email exam. So these are the three different emails I want to send out. Also in the folder we have created the email bodies, and all we've done there is create a Microsoft Word doc and saved as HTML, which is the file save as, and the type is HTML. So that's kind of the basics and the plumbing. So we'll just close those down now. Now taking a look at this now, there is a small technical thing you need to do when you're dealing with databases or spreadsheets, etc. So we're just going to go through a little bit of plumbing, and once I've done it, I'll show you the reason that we're going to go and do this. So we're just going to close our spreadsheet, go back to VIP. I'm going to do actions, register models, add Excel model, and then we're going to go and paste in the name of the path. So I'm going to paste that, and we're going to give the model and a name called exam email. Okay, now I'm going to click generate model. Now at this stage we're going to have to restart to use the model that we've created, so just click OK. If we go to tools, open app data, in here you'll find external entity assemblies and you'll find exam email, and you're going to find a DLL in there. We're going to copy that DLL into the location of our VIP flow. So I'm just going to paste that in there. Let's just close VIP. And that's copied it in like so. So let's restart VIP and build the program based on the specification. So first of all, let's create a flow. I'm just going to save it in our examples learn to code. I've already done it, but we'll call email management.vip. So we now have a flow. Now the first thing we need to do is to go off and read our spreadsheet. So you will see in here data import export, read Excel data, and all we have to do is drop that onto the palette. Now it's going to ask for what type of data do I want to bring in, and this is where the registering of our spreadsheet comes in very handy. If we go for browse for types, now you need to type in VIP model, and what it'll do, it'll show you the workbooks, and the one we're interested in is an exam. Now we're just going to leave that there for the moment. So now we have read Excel VIP model, and let's just go and have a look at the properties of that. So flowchart does not have any start nodes, so let's just go in and drop that on like that, like this. So we've got our now you'll see the little red message, and you'll see in the flowchart that always happens if any of the activities have an error, and then you just work your way down. So you can see we have an error here, which is fair enough because we haven't done much. So now what we need to do is to put in the name of the spreadsheet, which we'll just do. So we'll just paste in there like so. Does it have a header? Yes. True. Oops. True and false. And the sheet name, which is exam. So well, we're good to go. Now we're going to read it in, but we've got to put it somewhere. So what you'll see down the bottom is your variables, which we don't have any at the moment, and arguments, which you've got to think of them as parameters. So what we need to do now is to create some variables to pull the data into from the Excel spreadsheet. Now there's an accelerator if you just do right click, add output property values. Now there are two different types of property values, and you'll see this quite often. Now they're usually mutually exclusive. You can't have all of them. So what we're going to do here is just pick this one. For the moment we're just going to use var outlist. So that's that. Now you'll see the little red dot has gone away, and let's have a look at our variables, and you'll see we've created a var outlist. Now it's a variable type of list, but you can see it's come in as VIP model exam. Now the VIP model exam contains all the column names that we have in the spreadsheet, so that means by using that register we don't have to worry about trying to remember all the names. Now the next thing we're going to do is we want to just make sure we've read it correctly, so we're going to go to our conditions and loops. We're going to drag our for each onto here, just join it up. It'll immediately go red because there's something wrong with it. Now the type argument's important here, and what we're going to do is just say model exam, VIP model exam. Now that's come in automatically. You could browse for types, but usually they get appeared in the drop-down list for you automatically there. And now what we need to think about is what variables do we care about. Now we've already got the variables. If we do var and control space, you'll see out list, and that's basically the output that's come in from the previous read Excel, which was the output here. The little red thing has gone away, so let's go into here, and now we've got an activity. So let's go and see what activity we want to put in here, and let's just put a log message in. So we'll just drop a log message in. What it's going to say is, let's just type quote email equals quote. Now if you want to concatenate stuff, use the and. Again, this is Visual Basic syntax. And now what we need to think about is what do we want to put out. Now if you just type item, because that you can see at the top here, you have item like so. So for each item in var outlist, do a dot, and it will just show you the columns that we've registered. So if we just come down and click email address, and now we're just going to see if we can read those email addresses. So let's just save this and let's just do actions debug and see what happens. So you can see it's flowing through, executing the flow, it's reading the Excel, it's read it, and then it's putting this message out, hugh.price@outlook.com, and so forth, like so. It's processing each of the each of the emails, so which means we're in good shape. Now the reality is what we want to do is to start thinking about sending out specific emails to specific people. So first things first, we need to put a little bit more logic in here. Now we could kind of embed the logic in this block, but a very good common practice is to actually just drop another flowchart in here. I'm quite happy with my log activity, and if I drop a flowchart in there, then I can go and do a little bit more sophisticated, and you know, the work is a little more contained, and I can get into more complex logic. So let's just double click in there. So if you remember from the specification, if we have email welcome yes, that means I want to send an email. So we have one example here which has yes in it. So if we go back to our flow, first thing we need to do is to see if the word yes is in there. So we're going to go back to our conditions and loops, and we're going to pick a decision. I'm just going to come in here. Now it has a true false. We go to properties. Now the condition, if you just click on the little triple dots here, you can bring it to the middle of the screen. It's a bit easier. Now we're looking for item dot email welcome. So there are 3 different emails we're going to send out. We're just going to pick out that one, and we're just going to say equals to yes, which is fine, and that's going to give a true false. Now one of the problems with yes is that it's in mixed case, so it's worth just doing, if you do another dot, it'll show you all the different functions that are available, and if you just type T, you can go down to 2 lower, and then you convert that to yes, like so. So that in effect then is going to be a much more robust method of checking the value yes. Now if we're false, we don't really care, we're just going to skip it. But the next thing we want to do is to go off and actually send an email. Now let's just go to our email, and you will see in there send email SMTP. Now that's quite a complex activity there, so I'm just going to leave that to one side for the moment. We'll get back to that. Now once we've sent our email successfully, what we want to do then is we want to come in and actually go back and update our spreadsheet. So let's get that bit working first before we get into sending the email. So if we go back to our data import export, you will see update Excel cells using columns, and let's just drop this on here. Now we've got an update cell value, and what this is going to do is we need to go in and actually tell it where we had yes, we're actually going to go in and put in a specific date. So I'm just going to join this up like so, and now we've got to think about what we're going to do with our update cell values. Now you can see file path and sheet name, so I'm just going to nip back to the flow and pull in the file path again, just copy that out, go down into here, band down is my flow chart, update my cell value, pop that in. I can remember it's called exam, like so. Now I've got to think of my values to update. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to create a variable. So let's create a variable, and I'm going to call it var update Excel. Now this is a type of string, and what I now need to do is construct a value to go in and change the var update Excel, and that's a specific format which I'll just show you. So the format looks something like this. Basically we're going to refer to the column and the row, and then we're going to put in a value like so. If you want to chain them together, you put a little semicolon, so you can do lots of updates in one update statement. So if we go back to our spreadsheet, now you'll see here that it's actually the B row we're interested in, but of course we've got 2, 3 and 4 to think about. So now we need to go back to our spreadsheet and we need to start counting. Now we obviously start at number 2, so I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to do var row count, and I'm going to set it to a type of integer. So I've now got a variable. Now I need to pop back up a little bit here, and I'm going to, just in the flow, just before here, I'm going to just set the value to 1. So I'm going to do an assign statement. And what you can do is just drop that onto the arrow itself like so. And I'm going to just type in var. Now you'll notice that it hasn't actually picked up that variable. Now the reason for that is if we go down into the flowchart, you'll see the variable now exists var row count. Now what will happen is that they actually get, the variables are local to the particular scope. Now to be on the safe side, you can put them all at the top flowchart like so, and then they're available up and down the flowchart, but sometimes it's easier just to create a set of variables which only exist inside the scope of this particular flowchart. So let's just go back up to here. Now we've got assign, and if we do var space, you'll see var row count, and I'm going to set it to 1. So we're going to start with 1, and then as I go through here, I've got my log activity, and again I can just do an assign. So let's just go and do an assign. I'm going to drop it into this block here, and I've got my var row count, and I can just do var row count plus 1. So the first row that we actually come to is going to be a 2. So a little bit of programming here, but again not the hardest thing you've ever seen. So let's just turn our variables off. So let's just go to here, and we're going to update our cell value. Now we need to start constructing the update statement. So I'm going to do a quote. Now we need a B, and what we now need to do is we need to put in the counter. So we're going to put in var row count, which is now set to 2. And if we just do a dot, it's good practice with integers just to convert them to a string. Now let's go back and have a look at our little syntax. And there it is. And what we now need to do is just literally put in the variable that we actually want to post in there. So what do I want to put in? I want to put in the date and time. So what we're going to do now is just in here, we're going to put another ampersand, and now I'm just going to type in date, and let's just do a date time, and let's do dot to day dot to string. And now what you can also do, again this is all standard Visual Basic, if we just do an open bracket, we can now start thinking about maybe putting in some different formatted strings, and let's just do, and that's standard, basically standard Visual Basic string formats. Okay, so let's just give that a go. Just make sure that looks okay. That was all good, like so. So we're not going to do the email yet. We're just going to make sure we can update our cell value. I'm just going to close down the spreadsheet, and let's just do actions debug and see what happens. So it's gone through. Now the only one that it should really be processing is this one down here, because that has a yes. So let's just open our spreadsheet again. So nothing worked. So something's wrong here. So let's have a little look back at our program. So we'll have a look at the log. Now first things first, let's just make sure this decision is working correctly. So let's just put a little log message in there. We'll just drop that in and drop that like so. Go to the properties and put a little message saying in there, processing this email. Okay, so that's going to come down that, which will help us debug it. And let's just go back to our update cell values and see what we've created in here, and go and have a look at our syntax. Okay, so I can see I need to put an equal sign next to the value that I'm going to be changing. So I made a small mistake here. So let's go back in. So I've got B. Here I've got my toString and an and sign. And what I really need to put in here is another and, quote equals quote, like so. So let's go and do that. Turn our variables off. And what we're going to do now is just run it again. So this time we got processing this email. Now let's go and have a look at the spreadsheet. And you can see that we've actually sent the email welcome like so. We haven't actually done that because we haven't included the send email yet, but we'll just set that back to yes and save it, and then we'll go back to our flow. Okay, so what we need to do now is to actually incorporate the send SMTP activity. So we're just going to drop this like so. Now it'll take you a little while to get this up and running. You might want to just set it up in its own little flow first. In fact, I'm going to pull over one that I've already created because there are just quite a lot of settings to get right. Once you've got one working, then you can just obviously copy and paste it. So let's just move it over into here and just move that in like so. Now you can see here it's looking for a couple of variables which don't exist. Now the reason that I've done this is that there's two that are missing actually, the email body and the password. Now the way that you do the password, you can type your password in if you want to, but you can go to Tools, Encrypt String, and type in ABC encrypt, and that's going to give you a little string which you can then use so you don't see real passwords flying around on the wire. So that's what I'm going to do with var password. And then this one here, which is var email body. If you remember back in our templates, we actually had different templates set up with HTML, with .htm, and what I really need to do here is to send out my email welcome.htm. So if we go back to the flow, I'm actually just going to create a variable which is just going to be called var email body, like so, and then I need to actually just create an assign statement, and that assign statement is going to say var email body, and then I need to put in the name of the template. So now I'm just going to tidy up my send email, which I'll just do behind the scenes, and now we're ready to let it go. So let's do actions debug again, and that looks like it worked. So let's just go and have a quick look at our spreadsheet, and you can see that the email welcome has now been set like so. I could now go in and type in another yes, and it would pick up that one if I wanted to, but I'll just leave that alone for the moment, and let's just go and have a look at our email. And you can see I've got an email here from Hugh Price, continuing education, welcome to our team, and that's the HTML template that's come in. So let's go back to our flow, right to the top again. So hopefully you can see that we've just read in Excel. We've done a little bit of sort of more traditional programming with putting in some looping with the variable row count. Then we've gone into our flowchart, checked a bit of logic, and then we've sent an email and we've done an update. So using the power of the already existing activities, it's very straightforward using the combination of pretty much probably these two here, which is the assign, the log, the conditions and loops, and then the core common components inside VIP to define the most logic that you're going to need when it comes to integrating systems. So what's next? Go and create the flow in the video and get it working. You should be able to just do it from scratch, would be the best way to do it, so you understand how to use the canvas, the palette, the actions, and how the logic works, etc. And you'll make a few mistakes along the way, which is all good and a good way to learn. Once you've done that, get in touch. We'll send you the next video, which takes the same flow and basically makes it more robust, so there's more error handling in there, because you can't really have jobs failing. We'll also maybe put something like some interaction where we'll send out emails to say what's happened, or maybe use something like Slack. Then we'll send you a few exercises just for you to keep moving, and finally we'll send you a little exam just to make sure that you're kind of up to speed. And along the journey, feel free to stay in touch if you have any specific questions about code or logistics, or if you'd like to purchase VIP.